Welcome Year 6 to your daily maths lessons. These first 6 to 8 lessons will all be centred around area and perimeter and volume. You will need a pen and paper or a whiteboard and pen. You shouldn't need to have anything else in front of you. Okay, so today's lesson is going to be about recapping what you learnt yesterday and then revising some of those skills with some questions. So yesterday we looked at both the perimeter and area of rectilinear shapes. So I'm going to give you a moment just to think about, can you remember what the perimeter and what the area is of those types of shapes? I'm just going to give you about 10 seconds to have a think. Okay, so hopefully you have remembered that the perimeter of a 2D rectilinear shape is round the outside of the shape. It's almost like you're walking around the outside of the shape and measuring how long it takes you to get around, measuring the distance around the outside of that shape from when you start to when you get back to the very beginning of it. So it's the outside of the shape, the distance around the outside. The area of a rectilinear 2D shape is the inside of that shape. It's the space that that shape takes up. So what does rectilinear mean? We discovered yesterday that rectilinear is when a shape has all the sides which come together and meet at right angles. So you can see an example of that in our picture now. In a rectangle, all four sides there come together and they meet at right angles. Each corner there is a right angle. So this is an example of a rectilinear shape. So using that knowledge, can you now get a pen and paper or whiteboard and pen, and can you have a go answering the question on the screen? The width of the rectangle is 9 centimetres, the length is 12 centimetres. What are the perimeter and the area of that shape? So you can pause the video now and have a go, and when you resume, I'll go through that with you. Okay, so that problem here, we are told that the width in this rectangle is 9 centimetres, the length is 12 centimetres, and we are asked to work out both the area and the perimeter of this shape. So if I start with perimeter, remember we're looking at the distance all the way around the shape. So the length is 12 centimetres and the width is 9 centimetres. And knowing my properties of a rectangle, I know then that that is 9 and that is 12. Okay, so the perimeter, I add up 12 plus 9 plus 12 plus 9. And if I add those together, I get 12 and 12 is 24, 9 and 9 is 18. I can add those together and I get 42 centimetres. So my perimeter is 42 centimetres. Okay, so my area, I know my formula for my area is length times width. So my length is 12, my width is 9, so I do 12 times 9, and my times table knowledge tells me that is 108. It's centimetres, and because it's area, we remember it's centimetres squared. So my perimeter, 42 centimetres, my area, 108 centimetres squared. Okay, moving on to a slightly trickier one. We did have a go at this yesterday as well. Remember I said to you, before you tackle any question, double check that all the measurements are in the same thing, basically the same measurements. So here you've got meters, so check that they're all meters all the way around. Have you got all the sides you need to work out everything you need? If not, think about how you can find those missing side or sides. Okay, so have a go at that now yourself, the perimeter and area of this shape. Pause the video and then when you're ready, resume it and I'll go through that question with you. Alright, looking at this shape, this is not such a simple one because it's not just a straightforward square or rectangle. First thing we need to do is check they are all in the same and they're all meters, so I don't have to worry about changing anything. We're asked area and perimeter again, so if I go round, okay, I need to find this side, I don't know what that is. and I need to find this side. I don't know what that is. So let's have a look. How would I find this one out? Well, I've got 5 to here, but I need to find out to here. So I'm going to look straight away at the other side here, and I can see that from the bottom to the top is 8 meters. So from here to here is 8 meters, here to here is 5, so this extra bit here must be 3 meters. Okay, I can do a similar thing at the bottom here. To get from here to here, I need to see what I've got at the top. So from here to here I've got 10, and then it tells me from here to here is 12. So if I add these two together, I get the total distance from here to here. So I've got 22 meters along the bottom. Okay, now I've labelled all my sides. I should have all the information I need to work out both the area and the perimeter of this shape. So using the same method as I have done before, I'm just going to write the total, see how far it is all the way around. I'm going to start here. So 8 plus 10 plus 3, making sure I don't miss out any sides, plus 12 plus 5 plus 22 plus, oh, I've already ticked that, so I'm not going to add 8 again, equals, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 measurements there. Have I got 6 sides? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. So now I can add them up knowing I've accounted for all the sides. So 8 and 10 is 18. 3 and 12, 15. I just tick them off as I go. 5 and 22 is 27. And then if I add all those together, it will give me the perimeter. So 7 and 5 is 12. Add 8 is 20. Carry the 2. 2, 4, 5, 6. So that gives us a perimeter all the way around. If you were to walk all that distance, you would get 60 meters. 60 meters. Okay, now let's look at the area of this shape. Okay, so we have to divide this now into shapes that we can work out. So I can clearly see that I can make this into 2 rectangles just by doing that. And then I will get the area of this rectangle, the area of this rectangle, and I will add them together. So let's look at this one first. We look at this one first. Well, from here to here I know is 12, and from there is 5. Length times width, 12 times 5. That rectangle is 60 meters rather squared. Okay, if we look at this one coming down, the whole way here is 8 meters, and along the top is 10. So length times width here is 8 times 10, which is 80 meters squared. If I add those together, the area of this shape is 140 meters squared. Okay, we could have done it in a different way. For those of you that split the rectangle up in a different way, you could do it along here and you should get the same answer. So if we ignore our top one first and work out the answer of this rectangle, we get the whole way along the bottom 22 times 5. So 22 times 5, we can do a quick calculation. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 2 is 10, 1, 11. So this rectangle, 110 meters squared. So we've done that one, ignore that one, and we look at the top one, we get 3 times 10 is 30 meters squared. Add 110 is 30, and we get the same answer. It's 140 meters squared. So wherever you do it, it takes up the same space. The area is 140 meters squared. Okay, this question I left a little teaser for you at the end of the lesson yesterday. We had our farmer, and he had 60 meters of perimeter fencing. And he was trying to work out how he could produce the biggest area possible so he could keep the most amount of chickens. So the question was, how can he arrange this 60 meter area, 60 meter fencing that he's got to create the biggest area for his chickens? So you had to think about what kind of rectilinear shape could you make so that he could have the most amount of chickens in that enclosed area. So you had to remember the perimeter would have to be 60 metres, but with that, what's the biggest area you could get? So I will go through that with you now. In this question I left with you overnight, and it shows the farmer with his 60 metres. So if you can imagine the 60 metres just laid out like this is his fencing, and it's 60 metres, and he's got to arrange this in a way that he gets the greatest area possible for his chickens. So to begin with, I just started having a go. I just drew out a few scenarios, making sure that each time I drew something, the total was 60 of my perimeter. So if I started with 20, I'll say I'm going to lay out 20 metres up here. So that means 20 down here, which leaves me 10 and 10 here. Checking I've got the right perimeter. 20, 40, 50, 60, yeah. So I've arranged it into this rectangle. So what's my area then? What's my space for my chickens? Well, I know to do the area, I do length times width. So 20 times 10, this area would be 200 metres squared. Okay, that's not a bad start. 200 metres squared seems quite big to me. Let's see if I can get a bigger area though. What about if I make it a bit longer? What about if I make it 20, leave myself a little bit of space to show you. If I make it 22, does this make my area bigger? Let's have a look. So 22 on the top, 22 metres here, which makes 44, which will leave me with 8 here and 8 here. 44 and 16 is 60. So I've got a perimeter of 60. So now what is my area? 22 multiplied by 8. Is it going to be more than 200? 8 times 2 is 60. 8 times 2 is 60. No, this time it's 176 metres squared. So going up higher, long ways, doesn't seem to be getting me a bigger total. So maybe I'll go a bit smaller and see if that gives me a bigger total. So maybe if I try 18, let's try 18 metres, 18 metres, which gives me 36. So then I will need 12 here and 12 here. Let's see if I can get a bigger area than 200 metres squared. So if I add all that up, I get 60 metres. So I'm still using all my fencing. But 18 times 12, let's have a look. 2 8s are 16. Carry 1. 2 1s are 2 and 1 is 3. Put my placeholder in. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 1 is 1. 3 and 8 is 11. 216 this time. Okay. So making this a bit smaller seems to me that my area is increasing. So, okay, I can see then that going down, 18 by 12 is giving me a bigger answer. I then tried 17, 16 and 15, and on doing all that I have realised that the answer to this question is 15 by 15. Okay, if the farmer has a, as it turns out, a square enclosure for his chickens and each side is 15, so the perimeter is 60, 15 times 15 is 225 metres squared. There is no other way he can get a bigger enclosure. Okay, please feel free to keep trying and correct me if I'm wrong, but I have worked out that 15 times 15 is the best way he can get the biggest area. He can get 225 chickens in there. So you keep going, you can keep trying that yourself, and hopefully you understand how I got there. I can always say to my class, draw it out, draw everything out. It makes it so much easier to understand the questions. If you write down what you know, even just drawing a line like I did. Okay, he has this amount, he has to put it in a fence, this is a fence, he has to put it in some sort of enclosure that he can get the most amount of chickens in there. Okay, well done. We'll leave it there today, and tomorrow we'll move on to looking at areas and perimeters of different shapes. So we will leave for now rectilinear shapes.